cháu ấy ngất như thế. Không biết được, tôi đi chứ tôi về thì có gặp cô ấy nằm ở dưới đường ấy.
Khổ thân nhỉ, chả có người nhà đâu, nó khổ thế chứ lại.
Thế cô ấy có làm sao?
Mong là không sao.
The early morning sun cast a golden glow over the bustling city market at 9:05 p.m. +07 on Monday, May 19th, 2025, its light filtering through the canopies as Tu Diep walked down from the military camp, her cart filled with jars of pickled mustard greens she'd made to sell. The market buzzed with vendors calling out and the scent of fresh herbs, and Diep set up her modest stall near a fruit vendor, her voice warm as she greeted the crowd. "Wishing everyone good health and peace," she called, smiling brightly. "Auntie, may I sell here?" An older woman nodded, her tone kind. "Of course, dear." Diep arranged her jars neatly, her hands swift as she beckoned to passers-by. "Sister, would you like some pickled mustard greens?" "Grandma, how about some for you? They're sour and delicious." A grandmother paused, her eyes curious. "How much for a bag, child?" Diep's smile widened, her voice cheerful. "Only 5,000 VND, Grandma." The woman nodded, handing over the money. "I'll take one." Diep handed her a bag, her tone enthusiastic. "These are perfect for stewing with fish, Grandma." A young man approached and Diep called out, "Brother, try some pickled greens, 5,000 VND a bag. They're great with fish stew." He took a bag and soon more customers gathered, her stock vanishing quickly. "Here's 20,000 VND for the pickled greens," an older lady said, and Diep nodded, packing 4 bags carefully. "Here you go, Auntie. These will make your fish stew delicious. I'll add an extra bag for you." The woman smiled and Diep turned to another customer, a young girl. "Sister, I sell pickled greens. Only 2 bags left." The girl nodded. "I'll take them. How much?" Diep replied, 10,000 VND for both." The girl paid and Diep thanked her softly. "Thank you." With her jars sold out, Diep packed up her cart, her voice light with satisfaction. "All gone already, time to head back to the camp." She began her journey back, unaware of the storm brewing in her body. Meanwhile, in a sleek apartment across town, CEO James sat at a polished dining table, a velvet box in his hand, the diamond ring inside sparkling under the morning light. His mother, Mrs. Lon, sat across from him sipping tea, her expression curious as James spoke, his voice tinged with nerves. "I'm not going to work today, Mom. I left everything to Hung because I have something important to handle." He opened the box, revealing the ring, and looked at his mother, his tone earnest. "Mom, what do you think of Diep? I'm planning to propose to her tonight." Mrs. Land's eyes softened, her voice warm but concerned. "Diep is a hard-working girl, James, very sweet and lovely, but her life has been tough. No parents, no home. She's been through so much. Why do you ask?" James took a deep breath, his voice steady but emotional. "I've been with her for 6 months, Mom. I love her deeply. She's had such a hard life, living in a place our family owns with no real home. I didn't tell you earlier because I was afraid you'd judge her like Dad did with someone in the past. But I can't hide it anymore. I want to marry her." Mrs. Lon smiled, her voice gentle. "I already knew, son. Your father told me a while ago, but I wanted to see if you'd open up to me. I'm not against it. Diep's a good girl and I can see how much you care for her." James nodded, relief washing over him as he continued. "I spoke to Dad earlier and he agreed. Tonight at 8 p.m., I'm proposing to her at Tien restaurant. A private VIP room for two. I called to reserve a table with flowers, balloons, and a cake. I've waited too long, Mom. I can't let her wait anymore." Mrs. Land's expression warmed further, her voice supportive. "If you've thought it through, I won't stand in your way. I know Diep didn't have the chance to go to school, so it might be challenging for you, teaching her, supporting her, but I trust your judgment." James smiled, his voice firm. "I've thought about it carefully, Mom. I'm ready to guide her to help her learn, whether it's business or anything else. I love her for who she is." Mrs. Lon nodded, her tone tender. "Then go ahead, son. I'm proud of you. Bring her home soon. I'd love to meet her properly." James stood, his heart racing with anticipation. The ring box clutched tightly as he prepared for the evening that would change his life. Back at the military camp, Diep reached her small, weathered shack by mid-morning, the sun climbing higher at 9:05 p.m. +07 on Monday, May 19, 2025. She set her empty cart aside, her body heavy with an unfamiliar exhaustion, her head spinning as she sat on a wooden stool. "Why do I feel so dizzy and in pain?" she murmured, pressing a hand to her temple, her voice shaky. "I need to chop some banana stems for the ducks. It's probably nothing." She forced herself to stand, grabbing a machete, her steps unsteady as she headed toward the forest behind the camp, determined to finish her chores. But as she reached a clearing, her vision blurred, the world tilting violently around her. "Why am I so tired?" she whispered, her voice faint as her knees buckled, the machete slipping from her hand. She collapsed onto the dirt path, her body limp, her breathing shallow. Moments later, a passerby, a middle-aged man returning from the fields, spotted her, his voice urgent as he called out, "Oh no, someone's lying here. Hey, miss." He knelt beside her, shaking her gently. "Miss, wake up. Is anyone there? Help me." Another villager ran over, his tone panicked. "What's going on?" the man replied. "I found her unconscious on the path. Help me get her to a vehicle." Together, they lifted Diep's limp form, her face pale, and carried her to a nearby motorbike taxi waiting at the edge of the forest. "Hurry, hurry," the villager urged, his voice tense. "She doesn't have any family here. Someone needs to go with her." The driver nodded, his tone serious. I'll take her to hospital 153. Come along if you can. The villager hesitated, then replied, I'll go, poor girl, no family. I hope she's okay. As they sped off, the villager muttered, Poor thing. I saw her lying there all alone. I hope she pulls through. Meanwhile, James arrived at the camp, his heart pounding with excitement as he approached Diep's shack, the ring box tucked safely in his pocket. He knocked on the door, his voice eager. Diep? Are you there? There was no answer, and he frowned, noticing the door ajar. She didn't lock it. That's strange. He stepped inside, spotting a cup on the table. Looks like she was just here. Maybe she's nearby. He sat on the stool, his voice soft with determination. I'll wait for her. This time I won't miss my chance to propose. I'm sure it'll work out. James dialed her number, but the call went unanswered, his brow furrowing with concern. Why isn't she picking up? Maybe she went to the forest to gather something. No signal there. He glanced around, noticing a vine tangled in the grapefruit tree outside. This needs fixing. I'll wait a bit longer. At the hospital, a nurse struggled with Diep's paperwork, her voice frustrated. No family. How can I complete her medical file? She called Diep's phone and James answered, his tone urgent. Hello, Diep. A man's voice replied. Who are you? James's heart raced. Who are you? Why do you have Diep's phone? The man explained, his voice tense. I found her unconscious on the road. I'm taking her to hospital 153. She has no family, so we can't complete her file. Do you know her? James's blood ran cold, his voice shaking. I'm her family. I'll be there right away, thank you. He hung up, his heart pounding as he rushed to his car, the ring box forgotten in his pocket, his only thought to reach Diep before it was too late. James sped through the city streets, his heart racing as he reached Hospital 153, the clock ticking past 9:05 p.m. plus 07 on Monday, May 19, 2025. He burst into the emergency ward, his voice frantic as he found the villager who had called him. Where's Diep? Is she okay? The man pointed to a bed in the corner, his tone sympathetic. She's over there, she just woke up. I'm glad you're here. James hurried to Diep's side, his breath catching as he saw her pale face, her eyes fluttering open. Diep, you're awake, he exclaimed, his voice thick with relief. It's me, James. Diep blinked, her voice weak as she murmured, James? Why am I here? James sat beside her, taking her hand gently, his voice trembling. Someone found you unconscious on the road and brought you here. I came as soon as I heard. Diep winced, her hand pressing to her temple, her voice faint. My head hurts so much. James's expression tightened with worry, his tone urgent. Are you in pain? I'll get the doctor, hold on. He stood, but Diep shook her head weakly, her voice soft. I'm okay, James, don't worry. Think, I might have been out in the sun too much last week. That's probably why. James's heart ached, his voice heavy with guilt. I should have protected you better. This is my fault. If I'd proposed to you sooner, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Diep managed a small smile, her voice gentle. Don't blame yourself, James. I'm fine, really. And thank you for always being there for me. I'm so grateful. James shook his head, his tone anguished. No, Diep, it's my fault. I should have been there for you. A nurse approached, her voice calm. Family, please step outside. We need to administer her medication. James nodded, stepping into the hall, his mind racing with fear. As the doctor approached, his expression grave, James's stomach dropped. How is she, doctor? He asked, his voice tense. The doctor sighed, his tone heavy. She's stable for now, but her condition is serious. It's not just exhaustion. She has a chronic illness, likely exacerbated by her collapse. She'll need to stay here for at least a week, and her prognosis isn't certain. James's heart shattered, his voice barely a whisper. How do I tell her? She's so kind, so good. Why does she have to suffer like this? He paced the hall, torn between honesty and shielding her from the truth, his thoughts a storm of anguish. When he returned, Diep was awake, her eyes brighter as he set a bag of food on the tray beside her. I got you some food, he said, his voice soft but strained. There weren't many places around, just restaurants, and they don't do takeout. Let me help you sit up. He gently propped her up, his hands careful, and Diep smiled weakly, her voice concerned. Have you eaten, James? He shook his head, his tone gentle. Not yet, I'll eat later. You need to eat now, Diep. Focus on your health. No more getting sick like this, okay? Diep nodded, taking a small bite, her voice soft. I feel a bit better already. James watched her closely, his heart heavy as she asked, What did the doctor say about me? He hesitated, his voice careful. You're just a bit exhausted, like when you got heat stroke before. Nothing serious, so don't worry. How do you feel now? Diep sighed, her tone relieved. Much better, thanks to you. I'll eat more. I want to go home soon. James forced a smile, his voice encouraging. The doctors here are amazing. They'll take care of you. They told me to make sure you eat well and take your meds. You'll be okay. He handed her a glass of water, his movements gentle. Here, drink this. I forgot the dipping sauce earlier, but I've got it now. Diep took a sip, her voice soft. You don't need to worry so much, James. The doctors were kind, they encouraged me to keep fighting. I hope I can recover quickly. James nodded, his tone warm. Want to take a short walk after you eat? It might help you feel better. Diep's eyes lit up, her voice soft. I'd like that. James smiled, his voice reassuring. I've asked someone to look after your farm, so don't worry about it. Just focus on getting better. As Diep took her medication, her face suddenly twisted in discomfort, her voice shaky. I feel nauseous after taking the pills. I don't know if that's okay. She leaned over, her body trembling as she vomited, and James's heart clenched, his voice urgent. I'll go back to the hospital and ask the doctor to adjust your meds. Don't worry. He held her hand tightly, his voice firm but tender. Keep fighting, Diep, don't ever give up. I believe you'll recover soon. I'll be right here with you every step of the way. As the night deepened, James stayed by her side, his love a quiet strength against the cruel fate threatening to tear them apart.
Is apart in age, but she had also been with her husband for about 50 years. She talked of how they met and what their life had been like. And I could tell by her stories and the warmth of her tone of voice that she, too, had a happy marriage. Then it was my turn. And all I could do was cry as I told the story of my own husband's battle with cancer and chronic pain. As unquote, I'm used to asking people what they have learned from their experiences, so it was natural for me to ask her for advice on what happened